Hello everyone and welcome to the next episode of the Random Loot Tutorials. This time round we're going to be changing it slightly so that the numbers aren't appearing until you look at them, and we're also going to create a small UI for them. One thing I will mention though is what I have done just for a little bit of debugging, so I'm not going to show it. If you do want me to show it, by all means leave a comment underneath. Is I've created a little screen here which is a text render above a black plane, so it's not actually a screen as such, but it just keeps track of all the rarities and the amount of loot that we're spawning, just so we can get the percentages, make sure that it's all right. At the moment it's just making sure that it's the right levels of each one. So I was noticing that we was getting a lot of godlike and a lot of legendary, but turns out we're only getting 0.9%. I've also, under the loot item, under the self, I have set a lifespan of 25, so that if we do start spawning in hundreds upon hundreds, so if I was to go 0.5 and spawn hundreds upon hundreds of loot, it doesn't clog up the game and they do despawn. You can see we've now spawned 1,000, and it's still running fairly smoothly. But one thing that you've noticed is the text renders make this very messy. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So the first thing we need to do is under the loot item BP, the text render, we're going to just remove this out of the way. We'll keep it there for now in case we want to re-enable it, but that should mean that it never comes visible, and just by changing that alone everything is fine. We are also going to remove in the spawner this print string, which I did in the last episode. I just added it back in for some debugging, and we shall go from here. So I'm going to remove that print string as well. So now the only debug we have is that screen. Change it back to 1. And okay, so what do we need to do? We need to firstly set a collision on the items themselves. So we go to loot and we can see that we set collision to query only. So if we go to the sphere and change this to query only, you see nothing changes. So what we want is we want block on the trace, on both the traces. Now just a quick check, because this may mean, yeah. So we're going to change the camera to overlap. So it should mean that the spring arm no longer gets interrupted by the items. Perfect. Now, under the, if you push Control and Space and go to your third-person blueprint, we need to set up a line trace from the character to where we're looking at, and we can do that on the input on the event tick. So we need to drag off the event tick and type in line trace by channel, as we need to use the visibility trace channel. And what we're going to need is we're going to need from the actor location, and it will add a bit so it's not in the middle of the ground. And we want get actor forward get actor forward vector times that, right click and convert to float by 500, and we want to add that set to the end. So what this is, it's going to start at the location and it's going to go in front of this actor by 500, add it, and that's where it's going to show up. So if we do for duration and push play, you should see plus 100 is obviously too much. 0 is in the middle. And the forward vector isn't the right one. Get control rotation. Get forward vector. So now this takes into consideration the mouse direction. Now you can see here that it's actually below where the center of the screen is. So you can put this back up to 50. And it should be roughly where it is. So I'm going to edit the character slightly. We're going to move the camera boom over the shoulder, and we're going to make it a lot smaller as well. 200. So we can actually see in front of us now. And you can see if I look a little bit further forward, it doesn't hit the ground. So I have to be within a certain distance for it to reach. Okay, and we can change that for 1 frame. So we'll see that it's basically just showing where we are currently looking at that point. Lovely. So now we need to make sure that it does something. And to do that, we're going to go to the out hit on the line trace. We're going to go break as it is a struct. You can tell by the dark blue icon. And you want the hit actor, and you want to cast that to a loot underscore item BP. Now what we want is we want all of this to happen on hit. So if we go custom event is looked at, or look at item, and then in the third person character here we can go look at item and then compile everything. Now it should enable the text on any of them that we look at. But we only want to show when it is up. So what we can do here is, this is a slow way of doing, but it's what we're going to do for the tutorial, is add a branch on the return value here. If it's true, have a look to see. If it's false, then we can get all actors of class, and for each item we can custom stop looking at item. And we just set the visibility to false. So we stop looking, it turns off. You can also set the cast fail to go down there as well. So it means if we stop looking at an item, then that's when it changes. Okay. Next up, we're going to create a UI element which is going to show all of the information for the item. Firstly, we need to create the UI, and then from then we can edit it as we see fit. So we're going to go to Loot, right click, use interface and widget blueprint, and we're going to call this, it's just going to be a normal user widget, and we're going to call this loot widget underscore UMG, and we're going to open it up, change the fill screen to desired on screen, and here we can fill in with what we need. So I'm going to use a panel, and it's going to be a size box, so we can change the size menu. We're going to go for 250 and 600, maybe 400. Fill that with a border, ag bar, and save. And in the loot item BP, we're going to do add a widget under the sphere. We're going to call this UMG or loot UMG. Find a loot widget in the widget class on the right, and have draw size, draw a desired size. If we change it to screen, you should see that it brings up all of the UMG and everything. It's very similar to how we did for the text. So you can kind of guess where we're going to go from here. We're going to remove the text render, and we're going to change it to the loot UMG. And because we don't have any physical object, we don't need that anymore. So now everything comes up. It flashes as it gets turned invisible. But if we look at an item, then we get the UMG pop up. just going to edit this slightly so it's a little bit less jarring on the eyes. And below the text field, give it an outline, and we'll use this as the Lootscore. Now into the loot, if we go grab the loot UMG, we need get user widget object, and then we can cast from that. Cast to loot widget, and then from there we can set loot score, item details, break, get the loot score in there. And then we can drag that all to the begin play. .105. Need to fiddle around with where it goes, of course. Hi everyone, post edit Meerkat here. Just to fix that one bug that we had, if you go into the loot item BP and go to the loot UMG item, just bring it down, because we did have it up here, but if you just bring it down closer to the actual item itself, compile and save, and then when you run it and you go looking at any item, it should be around the ball. 191, 78, 43, 286. That one's showing up there for some reason. But yeah, that's UMGs. We'll fiddle around with this a little bit more in the next episode. Add in some more stats and fix a couple of bits and pieces. I didn't want this episode to go on for too long. But no, again, as always guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I shall speak to you next time. Bye bye.